Fantastic. Thank you so much, Louise, and hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me and inviting me to this. This is my first time of virtually traveling to Scotland, so I'm sorry to hear about the poor weather. It's nice. It's very cold, but it's sunny here in Boston, Massachusetts. So with that, let's not, postpone it any longer. I'm here to talk about ScratchJr, which is coding in early childhood. So it sounds like a lot of you have used Scratch before, so you're familiar with that interface. And now we're going to talk about how we can bring Scratch to even younger learners. So I'm kindergarten, first grade, and second grade. I'm not sure if in Scotland we use those terms, but, ages 5 to 7 and 8. So, okay. So let's get started. As Louise said, a little bit of housekeeping. If we could mute our microphones when we're not speaking. So at the end, after our create along, we'll definitely have some time to share our projects, and that's the time to speak. But for now, if you could mute them, that would be great. If you could turn your cameras on, that would be wonderful. And then if you have a device with ScratchJr, grab that as well, because like Louise said, we'll be doing a create along at the end where we all get to try to do a project on ScratchJr. And then also, as we said at the very beginning, if you could just pop in the chat how familiar you are with ScratchJr. Are you brand new? Are you a seasoned veteran at ScratchJr? All things like that. It'll help me to kind of know how I'm explaining ScratchJr to everyone. Okay. So the objectives for today is first learning what ScratchJr is and how it can be used. And then additionally, we're going to talk a little bit about the coding as another language, pedagogy, and curriculum, because with all computer science tools, you need the framing and the scaffolding around it to make sure that it's a positive experience for kids. So while ScratchJr alone is fantastic and kids can teach themselves and learn on their own, it's also a great classroom tool. And when we bring it into the classroom, we want to make sure that we're promoting these positive technological development behaviors. That's a big word, but I'll talk a little bit more about it as we get into what DevTech's all about. And then finally, you'll get to see some ScratchJr in action and maybe take action yourself for a create along in ScratchJr. Okay. So before we get into it, I want to talk a little bit about where I'm from. So I work at the DevTech Research Group. We are the co-creators of ScratchJr along with Scratch Foundation. And we do a bunch of different things at DevTech. So one, which, as I said, we're the co-creators of ScratchJr. So we create products. We work with ScratchJr. We also work with Kibo. You'll see in this corner, it's a little robot with funny looking eyes. And then we have Crispy, but that's a prototype that you can email me about afterwards, but basically all of these ideas are how to bring science education, engineering, computer science, all of that to early childhood in a developmentally appropriate way. Then we have our pedagogical theories. So this is where I'll talk a little bit more about that curriculum and the framing of ScratchJr. But basically we think about how to teach, how to design these technologies, all the things that kind of, like I said, frame the child's experience. We also do a bunch of research. We test out these products. We test out this curriculum. We're also doing some studies on the brain right now to see how children code and what types of activation are going on. So we want to really have research and evidence-based products that we put out there. And then finally, we do outreach, and part of that is speaking to all of you and telling everyone about what we do and how we do it so that hopefully ScratchJr and other technologies that are available to young kids can be available worldwide. So a little bit more about what is ScratchJr, because I know we're all here to learn about it, but a lot of us are unfamiliar. So ScratchJr currently is available on iPads, Android tablets, some Chromebooks, mostly touchscreen devices for the most part, because back in 2014 when we were researching this, we decided that kids use a touchscreen the best at this age. That being said, now as we've progressed and picked up popularity, we're also working on a web version, but that's kind of still in the early building stages. But hopefully the ultimate goal is to make ScratchJr available to everyone that wants to use it. But for now, it's on iPads, tablets, things like that. It is a block-based programming language, just like Scratch, but there's a few different differences that I'll get into. But for now, I'll just show you the interface. Up here at the top where the little kitten is on in the green hills, that we call the programming stage. And so that's where all of the output of the code goes. So rather, if you think about Python or other programming languages, one of the reasons that it's not usually accessible to young kids is because there isn't a really clear output. So one way that we make it available to kids is having a really concrete output from their input. So their code that they put at the bottom, this programming area, will then create animations that the kids can then watch. So they get to immediately see what their different programming blocks make and do, and they get to make their own stories or movies, we call them sometimes, because they are moving. They have different pages here on my right, so you can see there's one page here, but they could add up to 4 pages and have them all connect to make a little storybook. They could add different characters, they could customize and paint characters, so there's a lot of different modes of engagement, but the idea is that we're teaching very basic programming to young kids. So why ScratchJr? We wonder, why do we need ScratchJr at this age? So we have Scratch, but that's ages 8 and up. And so we're thinking about how we can bring these foundational ideas at really critical periods of learning for kids at this age. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. But first I'll kind of address the why teach it at all, right? So this is really complex stuff, cause and effect, logical ordering, sequencing, all these things that before ScratchJr really weren't expected of kids at this age. Children's ages 5, 6, 7. It kind of was just, brushed aside as not a skill they were ready for. When in reality, it actually was that there weren't the tools to teach them these skills in the right way. And so my boss, the founder of DevTech Research Group, Marina, was working with the MIT research groups looking at coding for teenagers and even, secondary school. And then she had her own kids. And she said, my own kids can't use Scratch. They can't read yet. So why should we assume that they can't actually engage with the concepts of Scratch? Let's just find something that works for them, and we can show that actually when they have the tools, they are capable of grasping all of these kind of complex fundamental concepts for programming. So the other reason to have it at such a young age, not only do we know that they can do this, but it's also really important to teach it at this age because children are just starting to read and write and learn how to use their words in more complex ways. So basically, they're learning symbolic representation. So they're learning this whole system of symbols that they can use to communicate, which actually sounds a lot like coding. And so I'll get into this more when we talk about coding as another language. But for the most part, the reason we're introducing it at this age is because children are learning to read and write and communicate. So we should also teach them these same fundamental skills of communicating and expressing themselves, but with different languages like coding. So a little bit more about the interface, and then I'll jump to the comparison with Scratch. But one thing, like I said, is that we're doing it when they're learning to read. So you'll see that the blocks actually click together left to right, just like they would be learning to read languages. And so that was a really intentional idea of ScratchJr, was that, okay, they're learning languages, and so we have these programming blocks that are going to parallel how they would put together letters and words and sentences. And then also, like I mentioned, we have these pages on the side that they can add and make multiple page stories. So we always frame it as you're making a ScratchJr project, you're telling a story. What do you have to say? What do you want to share? And how are you going to share it? So many of you said that you're familiar with Scratch. So I'm going to do a little comparison side by side to explain a little bit more why Scratch Jr. is developmentally appropriate for this age group. This is ages 5 to 8, whereas Scratch is ages 8 and up. So one thing you'll notice is that the blocks are all pictures, right? So here, I'll go back. You can see all the blocks here. We've got our block menu, which is where all the colors are, yellow, blue, purple, green. Those you can tap and look at all the palettes. And so here we've selected the blue blocks. So these are all the motion blocks. But you can see no reading is actually required to engage with this interface. It's all symbols, whereas popping back to the Scratch interface, it does require some reading skills and things like that. And then also you can see if you squint in, it says go to X -21 and Y 88. So Scratch has also, in addition to reading, it has kind of more complex concepts like reading XY coordinates on a grid and a little more complex conditionals and variables and randomization. And while all of those things are fantastic, they're all a little abstract for the age group we're looking at. So Scratch Jr. is a little more streamlined. So an example of this is that Scratch Jr. does have some conditionals like start on tap. So it's a block that starts the program, and if you tap the character, then the program goes. But it doesn't have while loops and while x is less than 5. So there's basically ways to teach conditionals in a much more concrete and hands-on way that Scratch Jr. does, that Scratch does a fantastic job of for the age group that it caters to, but Scratch Jr. just boils it down to a little bit, let's see, what's the word? Just more, I wouldn't even say more simplified, but communicating complex concepts in a simple and straightforward way. Okay, so if anyone has any comments or questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I'm trying to keep an eye on it, but I'm also happy to just answer questions at the end. Okay, so how is Scratch Jr. used? I've talked a lot about using it with young kids ages 5 to 8, maybe even 4 to 8, and that is the primary demographic. We have over, I think, 30 million users around the world using Scratch Jr., and for the most part, we're assuming those are young kids using it. But also, there's a lot of other applications that we like to emphasize, because bottom line is Scratch Jr., yes, is designed for this age group, but it's also just a friendly, approachable, user-friendly interface to engage anyone that's new to coding. So we have family coding days where we bring in parents that either maybe they're a little nervous about technology and coding and aren't sure how to engage but want to be with their kids. Or on the other end, maybe we have parents that are very advanced with coding and aren't sure how to communicate these ideas that they work with a lot to young kids. So we kind of get all ends of the spectrum with families, but trying to bring in all sorts of engagement so that kids and parents can work together and engage together on Scratch Jr. We also have our Cal Scratch Jr. online course. This is mostly for teachers. So this is a professional development course that is self-paced and teaching you how to teach with Scratch Jr., specifically on this coding as another language pedagogy that I talked about. So there's a lot of different ways to engage with Scratch Jr. We encourage it for kids, we encourage it for adults, we encourage it for teachers, and, you know, as long as everyone's having fun, it's all good. Okay. And I already said this, but I just wanted to say that there are many different contexts that we use Scratch Jr. in, and there's just many, many users that are using Scratch Jr. So it's currently available in 194 countries. We've had 145 million projects created, and like I said, we've got over 30 million users. Okay. So if there's any questions on just Scratch Jr. in general, feel free to put them in the chat, but I'm going to transition into more how to teach with Scratch Jr. So I've mentioned some of these ideas of literacy being embedded in the interface, like we have our blocks left to right, but there's also a framing and a curriculum that we put around Scratch Jr. to support our learners even more. Okay. So this is built off of the idea of coding as another language. And this is one of the 4 pillars that we think about at DevTech. We think about coding as a playground for kids to play and explore and test things out. We think of it as a language, so it's a way to express themselves and communicate. And while, yes, it is a STEM discipline, it's also so much more, right? It's a way to connect with each other, and it's a way to express yourself, maybe if words aren't your thing, using ScratchJr instead. We also have coding as a bridge. I said that that's more of how we think about, instead of building walls, we're building bridges. We're connecting with this universal language that people speak across the world. And then we have coding as a palette of virtues, thinking about how to bring in values and virtues into the classroom in early on so that kids begin coding and have intentions behind their coding. But anyways, those are our pillars, and now I'm going to talk a little bit more about coding as our language. So here is our curriculum. The link is down at the bottom if anyone wants to check it out. This is freely available. It covers kindergarten, which is ages 5 to 6, first grade, which is ages 6 to 7, and second grade, which is ages 7 to 8. Each curriculum is 24 lessons for each grade, and it basically takes the kid from beginning, no knowledge, learning about how to interact with an iPad or a tablet or just using technology in general, all the way through to creating elaborate, like multi-lesson projects that they come back to and learn about editing and creating. They tell stories, they tell their own stories. It's very fun. So I encourage everyone to check it out. Here's kind of structure of one of the lessons. So you'll notice a couple different things. I mentioned the palette of virtues is one of our things. You'll see down here on the left, optimism and curiosity. So throughout the curriculum, we highlight these values and virtues that might be a way for you to kind of bring those into the classroom. So an example would be optimism is you're looking forward to building with ScratchJr. You'll see here, this is lesson 2. So they're just learning about what they're going to use. So they're very curious and excited for what's ahead. But maybe when we have a debugging lesson where they're engaging with mistakes and fixing their mistakes, we might talk more about perseverance and patience with yourself. So again, I'm just trying to emphasize everything that we bring around coding. So coding in itself is a fantastic tool, and we want to make sure that it's a really positive experience for kids and that it can be integrated into all parts of the classroom. So each lesson will have some vocabulary that we introduce. We have some powerful ideas of computer science and also literacy. Those are paralleled so that we can see how they really map onto each other. And then we have our warm-ups where kids get to sing or dance and get ready for the lesson. We've got an opening tech circle where we meet and talk about what we're going to do. Then we have ScratchJr time, which might be structured challenges where a kid gets, you know, an idea of what they're doing and some more straightforward instructions and try new things out. And then we also have expressive explorations, which could be free play, could be take what you've learned in structured challenge and go see what you can find, anything like that. So we encourage both instruction where they're learning new skills and then also time for them to teach themselves the skills, engage, discover new things. We also have unplugged time. For this lesson, it's called Program the Teacher. So we're learning about communicating and sequencing our instructions, but totally off the tablet so that we're programming the teacher instead and they have to tell the teacher exact movements to do. And then we have word time. And so this is where we really strengthen that connection to literacy. We have them write out their plans for a project that they're going to do. Maybe they'll write about a reflection on what project they liked or didn't like. So anyways, there's a lot that comes into these lessons, and what we really want to emphasize is that coding is a fantastic tool, and there's so many opportunities to pull in many, many other things in the classroom with coding as well. And that's especially exciting and important for early childhood because they're just learning everything. They're getting introduced and excited about everything, and we want to make sure that they see the connections between everything. Okay. So, and this is a little bit, we've done some studies here in the US looking at the implementation of this Cal curriculum with ScratchJr, and we've found that there's been measurable success with this curriculum. So from pre-curriculum to post-curriculum, children's coding scores, that's the CSA score on the y-axis, have greatly improved. And then also their math and literacy scores have improved as well. And that's significant because while, yes, our curriculum incorporates some math and literacy, it's also taking away classroom time from math and literacy. So the fact that they're improving really shows that this curriculum is widespread into all the different disciplines that it's helping children at. So now we will go into our create along time. So I'm going to show you all an activity that we do in the Cal curriculum. It's an introduction activity, and the idea is to teach sequencing and skills. So basically a big question and idea that we talk about a lot is order matters. That's one of those skills that we've identified makes sense for early childhood. They can get their heads around it, and if they can understand that order matters and there's sequencing, they can then progress to algorithms and thinking about patterns and everything like that. So before we get along, I just want to give everyone a second to grab devices, get everything open. It's called the ScratchJr app, and it's freely available. So just take your time doing that, and I will get in to start explaining our activity. So I've heard in Scotland it's actually called the hokey cokey, but in the US we call it the hokey pokey. And this is just a pretty familiar nursery rhyme that everyone knows and gets to play and sing along with. So this is not only an opportunity to code with ScratchJr, but it's also a chance to get the kids up and singing and dancing and playing with their tablet as well. So we've adapted the song a little bit. So here, let me see if I can, oh, there we go. Okay, hang with me for a second. I'm just going to play this song.
You put your right hand in, you put your right hand out, you put your right hand in and you shake it all about. You do the hokey pokey and you turn yourself around. That's what it's all about.
And now I'm going to fast forward to our last verse. Let's see if we can get it. Because we've added in a little thing. Instead of hands and heads and all that, we have our scratch kitten.
Cat in, you put your scratch cat out. You put your scratch cat in and you shake it all about. You do the hokey pokey and you turn your cat around. That's what it's all about.
Okay. So back to this, let's see, it's okay, we've got our things. So we have this program, and so there's a lot of different things that we do with Hokey Pokey. We have the kids read the words first, then we have them think about the steps. It's hand in, hand out, hand in, shake, turn yourself around, and then, oh, and I missed the most important part, the hokey pokey. And so that's kind of a chance for kids to engage in some creativity and think about what does the hokey pokey mean, because there's certainly not a hokey pokey block. So let's see. So actually I'll preview this first. So I'm going to ask anyone these questions at the end, but before we get to it, I'm actually going to share my screen and do create along with everyone. So give me a minute for some technical finagling, and I will see what to do. Okay. I'm going to stop my share here, and I'm going to start my share here.
And if anyone's got any questions, pop them into the chat facility, and there will be some time at the end as well for any questions. But yeah, I'll let you get your devices all ready.
Okay, let's make sure this adjusts. There we go. Okay. And then let's see. I'm going to share my screen, but I'm also going to have it shown here in the corner so that you can see what my hands are doing. That looks okay. Everyone, Louise, that looks good? Okay. Fantastic. All right.
It's maybe just, oh, here it is. Yeah, it's just taking its time. That's perfect now.
There we go. Fantastic. Okay. So like I said, we have our programming area down here, our programming blocks here, and then our stage here where our cat gets to perform whatever we program it. So before we even get into the hokey pokey, I'm going to do some customization. And this is really important for kids at this age because if they're not set on just doing programming, that is okay. We want to make sure that they're enjoying their experience and they're making something that's personally meaningful to them. So incorporating art and music into that is one way that works for a lot of kids to get them engaged with ScratchJr. So I'm going to choose a background first. Let's see, I think I will have my cat, I'll have my cat be in a winter scene. We'll do some hokey pokey in the winter. Okay. And then I'm actually going to decorate my cat as well. So I think I want to change the color of my cat. I think I want a pink cat for this. Great. Oh, I can undo. There we go. Okay. So I've got my pink cat and I'm ready. Let's make sure. There we go. Okay, this is good. I'm seeing it on both screens so I can make sure that everyone's seeing what I'm seeing. All right, so now I'm going to start with my hokey pokey. So this is a really good exercise for kids to plan out and think about what they're doing. So first step, cat in. So we're going to put our cat in first. So I'm just going to start with our green flag block. That's the first start block that we usually use. And actually one thing I forgot to mention, and this is true with Scratch as well, but it's really important to look at the shapes of these blocks. The shapes are another way in which we indicate that order matters because it's like puzzle pieces, right? So you can't put a start block after a middle block because it won't click together. But you can put it here. So that automatically signals to the children that their start blocks always have to go in the front and the end blocks always have to go at the end, just from looking at the shapes. So that was one thing to call out. But here, I'll take away my end block and I'll just start. So I'm going to put my cat in. Let's see, I'm going to test it out. I think that's good. Maybe I'll have my cat do 2 steps. Okay, so cat in. All right, yeah. So cat in, and then I put my cat out. See? Cat in, cat out. Put your cat in, you put your cat out, put your cat in, another in. And then I'm going to shake it all about. So let's see. I think for my shake it all about, I'm going to use this repeat loop because that means that I can have it shake back and forth, and I'm going to use just these little rotating blocks. And actually, you'll notice, as I play, I'm testing out everything as I go. And that's one thing that we really like to encourage kids to do is this idea of iteration. So it's a design process, right? So we start and we have our idea, but then we have to try things out and test them and fix them and improve on things. So we're always trying it out. See how we can fix it. And I think I like that. I'm just going to do one little change. Have my cat rotate a little more. There we go. Okay. So put your cat in, cat out, cat in, and you shake it all about. Okay, here's the fun part, the hokey pokey. And so I want to add, as we're doing this create along, I should have said this earlier, your project does not need to look like mine at all. There is no one way to do this. And that's something that's really important about ScratchJr is there's never a right answer, okay? So kids, whatever is right to them is going to work, okay? And there might be codes that don't work, but then they can figure that out. But for the most part of expression and communication and language is there's never one right way to write a sentence or tell a story. It's always going to look a little different depending on who's the writer, or in this case, who's the programmer. So feel free to take creative liberties here, but I'll show you what I'm going to do for my hokey pokey. I think I'm going to jump away from these motion blocks, and I'm actually going to get a little creative here and do some big and small. And I think this might give the illusion that my cat is moving forwards and backwards. We'll see. Okay. In, out, shake it all about. Oh, I see, I already found a bug. So I added this too, but what I meant to do, let's see. There we go. I meant to have it just shake a little more. Nice. Okay. We do the hokey pokey and we turn ourselves around. For this, I'm going to do a full spin. And a full spin, fun fact, is the number 12 because also at this age, children are learning the clock for the first time. So we like to say, oh, it's a full circle, so we have to get all the way to 12. And then I think we'll be done. Let's see. Shake it all about, do the hokey pokey, turn yourself around. That's what it's all. Oh, and I got to do some claps. So I'm going to have Kat just jump twice for the clap. Okay, and now, last thing is that I always like to sing along when I actually play my program. And I have a feeling, here, I'll test it out really quickly. Cat in, cat out, cat, ooh. Okay, it's too fast. So another thing that I'm going to do is change the speed so that hopefully I can sing along. And so what I do here is I just add this on here and I make it the slowest. Doop. Okay. All right. So here is my hokey pokey. And there it is. If yours doesn't look like this, that is A-okay. But I'm going to try to sing along. Forgive my singing. It's not as good as our recording, but our recording's on the website if you get it. Okay. Put your cat in, you put your cat out, put your cat in, shake it all about. Shake it all about, do the hokey pokey, and you turn yourself around. That's what it's all about. Okay, so you can see that my timing is a little off, and that's A-okay. This would be a perfect time to have, this would be a perfect test for kids to then improve upon. So if I were to keep going, I might put a little weight block here, or, you know, maybe change these to a bit longer, something like that. But for the most part, that's just comes with the process. And that's why we like to give kids a long time of free play and self-exploration to test out, because really, they're the ones that know what's going to be right in their head. So we got to give them time to work on what they want to see. Okay, so I'm going to jump back to this. Let's see. Give me 1 sec. Technical again. Stop my share. Let's see if I can just take over. All right. Fantastic. We're back. So now would be a fantastic time. I've got the chat open if you want to just answer any of these questions in the chat. Or if you'd like to go off mute, that would be fine. Just don't all do them at once. We'll see how it goes. Okay, so I'm curious to see, how did you program the hokey pokey? What was your favorite thing about the project? Did you customize the project? And did you run into any problems that you'd like to share? And these questions, of course, I want to know what all of you guys answer to these questions, but these are also questions that we would ask kids. And yes, we're going to ask them their favorite thing and how they customized it, but we also always ask about problems because we want them to know that that's okay. You're going to run into problems and you're going to work through them, and maybe you're going to share with the class how you work through it to help your classmates and anything like that. So let's see. No answers in the chat yet, but that's okay. Does anyone want to, here, I can actually stop presenting. If anyone wants to just hold up their tablet. So let's see, I'll show you. So I shared my screen, but I also could just hold up and show these programs. So if anyone wants to show the program that they have, that would be fantastic. And I think it'd be really exciting for everyone to look at the different ones, because I'm seeing now already, I'm seeing many different projects. Oh, they're great. Oh, I see a cat with one pink head. This is fantastic. Oh, we've got classrooms.
It's good to see that some teachers are joining together to work together on this session and to create along. That's really fab. I'm still waiting for Eva Wilkinson's. I want to see her hokey cokey. It's great to see some of our computing science leaders here as well today, joining us, and some new folk as well, which is wonderful.
Ooh, Mr. Krugen, that one's cool.
Yeah, well done, Callum. I think you've done this before, Callum.
Fantastic. Okay.
So that was a really quick run through, Jess. So do you know something? That's amazing to see what people have created. And as you said, the most important thing, well done, Mrs. Wilkinson, is that tinkering element, is that playing around. You can never make a mistake with this, ever make a mistake. And that's the fun of computing science. It's all about the tinkering, exploring, making mistakes, getting it right, and going back and doing it all over again.
Exactly. No, exactly. I think, like I said, and I didn't mention this too much because I focused on the coding as a language, but coding really is a playground. It's a place for kids to explore and try things out. And there's really, like you said, there's never a mistake. There's only an opportunity to get better and try new things. So, like I said,
a few questions. Sorry about that, Jess. I completely missed some of these questions because I was so busy looking at the camera and what everyone was doing.
Oh, totally.
So how did you change the speed? Fiona was wondering if you can just show how to change the speed again. Yes. So sorry, that's probably meaning you have to go back and to your iPad, but that would be great.
Yeah, no worries. How does this look? Is that better, or should I share my screen again? This is good?
Is that okay for everyone? Yep.
Okay. So if you'll see here, so on this side where it's yellow, blue, purple, green, these are all of the block categories that we can take. So we've got our yellow blocks, which are our start blocks, the blue ones that are motion, purple have to do with like the looks of the character, green is sound, and then we get to these orange blocks. And the orange blocks are purposefully grouped together because they're a little harder. So that's another way that we kind of streamline ScratchJr to be accessible to really young kids so that they're not encountering these very complex blocks right at the start. This can come in first grade or second grade or something like that. But so anyways, I'll zoom right up. We have a couple different ones. We've got the weight block. And here, actually, a pro tip is if you hold your finger down on the blocks, it will show words of what they do. So that's a nice hint that we like to give to parents and teachers because it's not always useful for our kids, but that's okay. So we've got our wait and we've got our stop. Both of these will either pause the program or stop the program entirely. And then we have our change speed. Change speed, let's see, I'll pull this down so that you can see, has a drop-down menu of the 3 different speeds. And if you put this block in your program, it will change the speed of the entire program. So I've put it right here at the very beginning so that from the very start, it knows that this is going to be a slowed down program. But you could also make it very fast. So here, I'll even give an example. I'll just make my hokey pokey. Oh, stop. I'll make my hokey pokey very fast now. And now see how fast cat goes. So you can play around with changing speed, and then also here we have our repeat loop. And so we call these the control blocks because actually what they're doing is none of them on their own actually do much. They mostly impact other blocks in the program. So they're controlling other blocks. So this one is controlling speed of other blocks. And then the repeat loop is controlling the repetitions of other blocks. So that's a way we like to explain it. But I hope that answers your question and a little more, I guess. Any
Yes,
other
that was
questions?
excellent. We've got one more question. How do you make the cat go back to the beginning of the project? So sometimes your cat might be in mid-air, slightly turned around, or...
Yes, great question. So what I like to use, so you'll see actually, I should have mentioned this before. So I'm using this yellow start block, and this is the one that we usually introduce with the green flag. And the reason we do that is because you'll also see a green flag up at the top. So the reason that we would press the green flag up at the top rather than just tapping on the program is because the green flag at the top will control any program that has a green flag starting. So if I add another character here, see, I'll do that. Now I have this character, and say I just want to start it with saying hi. So I'm going to have my character say hi. So I can have it just say hi here. But if I want them to both go at the same time, I could press the green flag up at the top. Right? Okay. So, Louise, remind me of the question. I got sidetracked.
That's how do you make the cats go back to the beginning of the project?
Yes. Okay. So the reason I brought attention up here is because the green flag will start, but you can also stop the program when it's going. And then the button right next to it will send it back to the start. It'll send it back to kind of how the characters were, big coding word, initialized. So wherever the characters started, this button right here next to the green flag will send them back. So say I have cat, let's see, I'll move cat. Oh, this is tick. But either way, so I've moved him. Let's see if this, there we go. And he initializes back. That was a bit of a roundabout way, but basically it's that button at the top. And I wanted to draw attention as well to the green flag because that's a good starting point for kids to understand how to program different characters at the same time and things like that.
That's excellent, Jess. Thank you very much. And Mrs. Love has coded her own hokey cokey blokey. So she's got rid of the cat and she's put a bloke in there as well. Maybe a very Scottish word, I don't know. But it looks very, very good. Well done, Mrs. Love, and great to see you here as well.
Incredible. I love it. Well, if anyone, I mean, I guess I'm not sure let's actually here, I'll show one last resource because I was going to say I would love to see everyone's programs. And one way to do that is ScratchJr Connect down here at the bottom left. So this is a curated database that DevTech works on, and it's essentially for teachers, parents, or anyone engaging with ScratchJr activities. And the idea behind it is that Scratch is an online community. You can share projects and comment and see other people's work. ScratchJr is not, because our children are so young using ScratchJr that it's really not safe and appropriate to have them talking to one another on the app or anything like that. So ScratchJr Connect is our attempt at cultivating some sort of community, but rather than actually having the users, it's the educators around ScratchJr. And so there you can share projects, activities, lesson plans, anything like that, and DevTech researcher me will go and see the resource and make sure it's, appropriate and aligns with our values, and then I'll post it for everyone to see. So if anyone is interested in sharing their Hokey Pokey project, I would love to see it on ScratchJr Connect. And you can also see a bunch of different activities that we have on DevTech's website, these just being a few of them. So I encourage you to check out any of those. And I'll play that one later. If you want to learn more about our pedagogy, here are my boss, Marina Bears' 2 most recent books, Coding as a Playground and Beyond Coding, talking more about that palette of virtues that I talked about, bringing values into the classroom. And that is all. So here are my contact information and some of the websites I mentioned. I'll leave this up for a little bit, but then I'll also open up the chat and take any questions that anyone has. Thank you.